Okay, the stream is now live and it appears that everything is working well. So let me go ahead and get in here. Okay, there we go. All right, Wholeness and Balance Vibrations family, and thank you so much for tuning in. It is the Keymakers, it's episode 5. And wow, we're smoothing in here today. It's been a very interesting week to say the least, very revealing. Lots of stuff happening, and we're here today to bring yet more clarity, to continuously get us all in love with ourselves and each other in the vein, of course, that all is self. As you know, the Keymakers is a panel of very enlightened, very inspiring beings just like you. And we're coming from across the spectrum to bring a certain level of awareness and dial in our creativity. And also, what we do is we have this question and answer session that we open every single weekend, preferably generally on Sundays. And in these times, you have the opportunity to ask questions. And we not only answer those questions, but we answer those questions based on your path. So this becomes a very important time for you to get clarity, but not just a generalized clarity, something that's very specific and something that's very unique to you. And how we do that is we use enealogy. Enealogy is a system that we are using within our tribe that's thousands of years old, that gives us a deeper insight into who we are. It uses numerology, which is basically just by calculating the day that you're born on, to give astronomical and a metaphysical insight into your what I call subset. This means what you prefer, how you communicate, and what kind of energy that you're vibrating with. We always let everyone know that you're not just one path, you're actually all the paths, but you got to start somewhere. And it's good to know the blueprint to self and to get familiar with your blueprint. And that way you can interpret all the things that are going on around you. And you can also assist others in utilizing this to get to understand themselves more and to figure out where their creativity is and where their uniqueness is. Also, I wanted to, because this is the 5th episode, the Keymakers are here with me today. I'm going to give them an opportunity to introduce themselves so we can refresh so everyone knows who everyone is here. And before we do that, though, I want to give you a little bit about the format of exactly how you'll be able to ask your questions. That way we can get as much information from you as possible to do the best that we can in giving you a solution. And so what we ask you to do is we ask you to, first of all, paraphrase your question first with question, generally in capital letters. That way the moderators that are in the chat with you can see your question and also basically funnel that question to us. So that's the first thing, is mark question before you type it in. And the second thing is to calculate your path, because we would like to know your path number so we can really dial into how to answer your question. And how you do that is you take the day that you were born on. In this case, I was born on the 22nd. So I would add 2 and 2 together, which gives me 4. And we're looking for the simplified number. So if you were born on the 27th, let's say, or excuse me, the 19th, let's say, that of course is 10, but 1 plus 0 is 1. So you would be number 1. So hopefully that's simple enough, but we ask for that number. And also we ask, because we found out last week, it's even better when we know if you're a male or a female, because obviously we do see the world a bit differently. So it really helps us. And then if you're referring to anyone on the path, I know this is a lot of data, but it allows us to dial in better. If you're referring to anyone on about in your question, so if you say, well, my husband, who we would like to know their path number. So my husband, who is an 8 and I am a 6, and this helps us out a lot. It lets us be more precise with the advice that we're giving you. Now, remember also the disclaimer is we're doing our best. And this means that we're going to do the best to answer your question, but you also have to use your own discernment and determine if the question or the answer that you're receiving is going to harmonize with you properly. Remember, this is a buffet. So you'll have the opportunity just to take the answer, and then whatever doesn't resonate with you, just leave that. And I'm sure you'll be able to walk away with something wholesome. And so without further ado, because we did get started just a little bit late today, or as I always say, right on time, I'm going to go ahead and let the key makers introduce themselves. They're on the line now. We're going to do this counterclockwise. So I'm going to start with my sister, in the top left corner of my screen, and of course that would be Gail. And then then I'd be next, so I need no introduction, I don't think. And then I have my brother Alistair. So and then we'll go to Niva, and we'll just keep it going through like that. That way we can get a brief introduction of who everyone is, and what is your specialty as a key maker, wholeness.
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 I am Gail Forrest, Gail George. I am a creative economist and a content curator, which means that I specialize in the strategic allocation of energy, time, and resources to help people bring their uniqueness to the marketplace. And I'm happy to be here.
Awesome.
My name is Alistair Hart, and as a soul coach and founder of Heart Space, I help people turn their spiritual side hustle into a path that is one that they're able to own their reality and be happy in their body, in their mind, in their spirit, and get out into the world and do their purpose. Wholeness.
Wholeness. My name is Niva Shah, and I'm a consciousness coach and a reality transurfing coach and trainer. And my main interest is a lot of sacred geometry, following the path of Advaita, which is taking you back into your art of inner joy. So my coaching is very much to guide you to your inner joy using artwork and conscious coaching. Wholeness.
Wholeness, everyone. I'm Joy Vogan, and I am so excited to be here with everyone again today. I am a Chief Nourishment Officer of myself, my family, and at my company, Glow Time Wellness. And I am by trade, I'm a nutritionist and an herbalist and an educator. And what I offer to my clients and to everyone really is I offer personalized nourishment plans where I just love you up and talk to you about what's going right with your body, and I mix in a little tarot for some metaphysical takes on your energetic centers and all that nourishes you. So excited to be here. Thank you, Wholeness.
I'm sure this introduction is amazing, but our brother's gonna have to hit that unmute button real quick. There we go. Go ahead and unmute that
thing. Wholeness, family. I am Curtis Arreal with a reflection of you, and I'm the founder of One Tribe. And my specialty is music. Passion is ethnomusicology, studying music and society, how music affects society, and really transmuting that to the youth in a communicative way, be it griotic expression and pedagogy with the youth. Honored to be here, and I'm also a soul coach with Secret Energy. Wholeness.
Wholeness, everyone. My name is Paige Flowers. You can find me on the web at youtube.com/Paige Flowers. I'm a content creator, a teacher, entrepreneur, and yeah, I just do about just anything and everything. So yeah, you can connect with me on there, and I'm glad to be here. I'm a part of the Secret Energy tribe. So yeah, glad to be here. Wholeness.
Wholeness. My name is Déesse Wigeby. I specifically deal with womb healing. I own the Awakened Self Life, my own Awakened Self Life website, which I also live the Awakened Self Life. I study Tai Chi, Qigong, female sexual cultivation. So overall, also a soul coach with a Secret Energy. Wholeness.
Wholeness. My name is Life the Griot. I'm the founder of Chess and Community. My focus is youth and community development. I'm a poet, and like Sister Paige say, I'm just a man of many locks. So I do so much, and I'm part of Secret Energy. Wholeness.
Wholeness. And there you have it, tribe. We always believe in tribe without an S. So everyone here on the line today is a part of the family, including you. And that's what we do. We come in here every single week, as we mentioned, to get more clarity with the family, especially in the times that we're in. One of the main reasons why we started Keymakers is clearly the world has changed. What we're witnessing is a brand new epoch. Like, I think that what had been happening is people were talking about this so much and saying it was going to happen so much and thinking about it ever occurring. And then when it finally happened, they were like, it's happening. Life-changing things, shifts, time to get out of the job, time to go and find what I'm going to do in my life, time to get self-sustainable, time to become sovereign. And I heard somebody today, they sent me this, someone sent me some posts. I get stuff all the time. But somebody said, how can we get out and protest if we can't get out of the house? And I'm like, well, protest to who? Protest to what? When are we going to get to a level where we start empowering ourselves and realizing what we need to be doing for ourselves rather than wasting our time protesting to someone who is not going to answer what we need, give us what we need anyway? And so this is about getting you what you need. And so I also wanted to say, because I know that we generally cover this etiology topic, and it is very personal. It has a lot to do with feelings and relationships and communication, but that's not all. So if you do have any questions about stuff going on in the reality, things that you're experiencing, etc., this is a really good time to ask those questions. So your question doesn't just have to be about your relationship and your mood and how things feel. I also want to give a special thanks to our, I call them the scribes, but these are those that are actually taking the notes of what is transpiring here in this conversation today. That's our sister Laura and our sister Kayla. Thank you so much out there for being available to do this. It's an extreme help to all of us. And for those that are looking for these notes, because maybe we've talked about a lot of solutions today, we're big on solutions. We actually have more solutions than problems. But what that does mean at times is, you get a lot of stuff and you're trying to figure out, what you were even told to do by the end of the show, because maybe you didn't take any notes. So we've opened up help docs. That's at support.secretenergy.com. That's support.secretenergy.com. You can scroll down to etiology and you can click on that. And what you'll see is the questions that have been asked by the specific path and the answers and the solutions that we've given to those questions. I'll also recommend that if you want to learn more about etiology and about yourself, you can go there and you can actually scroll through all the questions, even the ones that are not related to your path, because you'll find that many of the things that we all experience them together. You can also go to etiology.com to learn more about yourself. You can actually calculate your path. Very easy, as we explained earlier, and then you can get information there about your path. And if you wanted to take the deep dive, then we suggest that you join Ambassador Training or Sovereignty Mentorship, and that's where you'll find us all. There's tons of materials inside of Sovereignty Mentorship, stuff that's not available on the internet. About 80 to 90% of the content there is fresh and new. And we just jumped in Friday for another amazing build, and we went deep into the Goddess and also the Explorer. These are the two what I would say is the archetypes of the male and female and life goals here on the planet and what we want to achieve. So without further ado, because it has a tendency to start pouring in, you can start asking your questions now, but I do have 3 of them that are ready. And these questions are already coming out in a way where, it's going to take some adept level insight here. So the first one here actually is a question from a path 8. So this is the Saturn Path. And question is, today I make 19. Congratulations. When added up, it brings 1. Every 9 years, we begin back at 1. Does this mean every 9 years we enter a new pinnacle in life? Okay. And why the Keymakers are dialing that in, I will give a little bit of insight into, there's actually a few terms in life, to be honest. Like, some actually say that 7 is also the number. Every 7 years that we have this turnover. I can see how 9 could come into play in there. I can also see how 13 may even come into play in there. So my advice is that we can feel energy when it's coming through and when it's changing. We have what would be the big hand on the clock, which is the one that's moving much faster. So you have these changes that occur more frequently. And then we have the small hand on the clock, where there's almost like a big lineup and then everything changes. And so I would say definitely looking into life and seeing where those pinnacles are, since the question was, am I entering into a new pinnacle in life? I would say for sure look within and see if that's how you feel, and then also look at the environment that you're around and see if things are shifting there. Maybe the Keymakers have some insights also to give on those shifts and cycles that take place in life.
I just like to jump in as a Path 8, that because it is the long path, and that Saturnal energy moves really slowly, and especially at 19, sometimes it feels a lot longer to get to wherever it is that you think you're en route to. That thinking of those pinnacle energies, there's a pinnacle every day. Almost in every breath can be a pinnacle, in the sense of being able to be empowered to kind of shift the dynamic that you're experiencing, but also to have a sense of satisfaction, which I think is important for that long run energy, to be able to feel, that you accomplished something, or that you're moving in sync with your long-term path. And the other thing I just wanted to add is that different traditions mark those pinnacles at different times. And there is one, the galactic signature, which is the Mayan calendar, actually denotes a pinnacle at 52 years old. Like that's the big pinnacle, and then your journey starts again. So just that there are different systems that mark those pinnacles, but they can be in every moment, and enjoy them, because it's a really great practice to embrace when you have that long-term Saturnal energy guiding your path.
Honest, I'm looking forward to my rebirthing then in a couple of weeks' time at the age of 52, Sister Gale Force. So I'm looking at this in terms of the ancient Vedic scriptures, which always in the Upanishads, they describe how the process of enlightenment or knowing the self is the complete disappearance of the ego in each step. And they look at it in terms of the 7 steps called the 7 bhumikas. And so you have the first bhumika level, which is 0 to 7 years, which is very much based when the ego incarnates into the body. So, the child, the angry tantrums at the age of 2, the I-ness starts to come in. Then you have the ages of 7 to 14, when the child starts to get more attracted to people of the opposite sex. 14 to 21, when they start to become more established in their work or in groups of people. Then you've got the 21 to 28 age group, which is taking on more responsibility in their work, or, choosing a life partner. 28 to 35, which is more established, again, as the destiny number starts to set in as well. So taking on parenthood and prominent responsibilities in your life. Then you've got 35 to 42, when he starts to, kind of reach a midlife crisis almost as well, starts to review his life thinking, oh my gosh, I've lived so many years. What have I done with my life now? How am I going to move forward? And then from 42 to 49 years, which is the 7 times 7, the person gets more established and settled in his life, and he starts to look into his soul purpose. Why am I here? What am I doing here? How am I going to be moving forward? And then post 49 is, like Sister Gale Force said, with the Mayan calendar as well, going into age 52, it's like a rebirthing. It's like the butterflies coming out of the cocoon. And this we see very much in a recent book that we've studied called the Leela Game of Snakes and Arrows in Secret Energy, where we've been climbing up the 7 chakras of the board game of Leela until we reach cosmic consciousness at the 8th chakra. So, wholeness.
I would add, if I can,
Wonderful
that
build, sister.
Yeah, it is. That was powerful, and I would add that there's a level of trauma that occurs in a person's life as well that may propel the person even forward or slow the person's growth in some aspect. And just environment where you live at and the experiences that you go through may propel you into that journey of the caterpillar to the butterfly. at 19 or at 20 something. So sometimes life happens. A lot of times, a lot of these tools that we get, you use that as a foundational tool to say, okay, and you connect, you channel, like which one connects better with me in my process, in my development. And none of it work unless you work, right? So there's an aspect of you settling in and you identify and you feel yourself, especially being at 8, you feel yourself. There is that dark side to us. As Sevan pointed to me earlier this week, you know what I mean? I have an 8, and there's that part of us. So there's a point where we have to sit down and recognize what is it within me that I need to really begin to work on and take all from the etiology, a lot of these schools of thoughts, and put that into motion to where it can actually connect with your development and your growth. So a part of it works when you work.
So I'm going to jump in because right before, I don't know if you guys realize, right before we started, we had the kids joke. So we were joking around and the joke went, you know, doing all these kids jokes. It was like, why was 6 afraid of 7? And of course the joke is because 7, 8, 9. And so, you know, in terms of how like these kids joke or riddles are strangely esoteric, you know. So I'm really like, the question came and I'm like, wow, like I see so much in this. Like the depth of it is like really making my brain go crazy right now to look at these numbers in terms of like how powerful. And you know what I actually saw with the 8 was the loop that was going on in terms of, you know, even if you think about, okay, which number is significant? Is it the 7 or the 9? I think they're all significant depending on where you are in your stage of your life. But, you know, kids' riddles is like, I'm like, you know, stumped with all of that's coming through in my brain, literally having a download as we're talking, you know, very, very interesting. So I'll definitely be stirring on this all day and get back to you guys. Wholeness.
I also wanted to point out very briefly, since it was a part of the conversation in relation to building these levels, and I threw a picture up here that we were looking at this week in relation to consciousness again. And one of these pillars in itself is actually the 7 stages of what they say is the goddess. And this is a deeper esoteric relation to how all the physical planes are seen as being divine feminine. But I notice how things kind of crescendo at the tip here. And many of us have experienced that in our lives where it's like we're building to something. And just like our brother had mentioned that, you know, if you have a phase and something goes on in that phase, that foundation is kind of like somebody needs to come back in and kind of work on that area. So as they talk about children do the most of their development from the age of 1 to 7, right? Or it could be 1 to 9. Let's just say that there's a specific range where we have this development that happens. But then if that development doesn't go as well, or certain things happen during that phase, then that stage is actually, that foundation could be a bit shaky. And so what will generally occur is as the being starts rising higher on their path, they may find some instability. And this could definitely connect in sometimes when we receive current, when we receive responsibilities, when we receive anything that's depending on our foundation to have been set properly. This is sometimes upbringing, home training, all those kind of things play key components into how our energy flows and how much success we have in the discovery of self and what goes on beyond. So I just wanted to bring awareness to that. You're actually building something. So as our sister was saying, also when you're going through these cycles and you're going through these phases, to take time, especially in the reward part, and to realize, you know, okay, I'm going through this, and that you don't want a premature building of your structure. And this sometimes can play out as, I need to get to this level now. I feel like that even though, you know, basically it's like trying to get to a stage that you're not necessarily at or prepared for, but seeing the stage that you're on as inferior. And that's not what's happening. And I think this is also what our sister was saying, is that like I can tell you why each number would explain to you that it's the best number. Like I could tell you why 1 would be like, and what 2 would be like, and how each of these numbers would say, but actually it's really, and what you have to be wise enough to see is that actually it's the core, the essence of what we're discussing, and to remember that you're going through these phases and these cycles, and to cherish them, because just as when you were younger, you know, some wish they were young again. You notice how, you know, there's another thing that happens with all of us, that, you know, children, like I heard my daughter say, she was like, oh, wow, you know, she was talking about one of her friends, and she said, oh, she's already looking like a teenager. She's already looking like she's getting grown. And you saw that desire for her to want to be getting older. And of course, I remember that too. I remember like shaving my bare face with a razor, because, you know, I just wanted to get some facial hair. And even I was in my 20s, I never thought it would happen. And then now, you know, it's like, oh my goodness, I got to cut this stuff again today. So there's always, you know, the essence of who we are within everything we do. And I know that's what our sister was saying. Since we're young, there's like hard-coded riddles where it's like, I'm trying to get old now. And, you know, we're trying to skip phases. But, you know, when we have this wisdom says, hey, each of those phases need to be designed properly for you to finally get to that peak or that crescendo and actually be able to hold that up there. And I think that that's also why things get slimmer as it goes up, as you see with the diagram that we showed, because just as our sister said, it's like a releasing of weight, ego, ideas of just a narrowed down self, and just, you know, simple dynamics to how we exist. And you remove all of that, and now you're everything. But to be able to hold the weight of everything, you actually have to be really light. And I think that that is, you know, a paradox within itself. But hey, we're in a paradox. So I'm going to keep moving with the questions. We can always revisit this stages as we keep going on and make the entire conversation just relative to itself. This is a question from a female number 1. Wholeness. She's saying, during the week I work and I find myself resting a lot on Saturday, and Sundays I have a lot of energy to work. Is it because of my path, or am I supposed to be resting on Sundays? So this is the question from a female number 1.
Wholeness. I'm also a female 1, and I was born on Sunday. And Sunday is a power day for me. I love Sunday. I love it. I don't generally rest on Sunday. I do tend to Sabbath, if you will, or, you know, kind of take that rest on Saturdays. But I think it's a personal thing, and, you know, kind of finding your rhythm. I don't think there's just a blanket supposed to or should thing that applies. And you'll figure out what, you know, your path is. But just as a number 1 born on Sunday, I feel very energized on Sunday and find myself very productive on Sunday.
So speaking on those power days, as a 1 myself, Sunday is one of those days of being a 1, and any day that equates to 1, be it 10, whatever, the other one to go to 1. But those who are power days for you, being the 10th or the 1st of every month, and also the Sundays of every month. So that's 3 power days that you have, 3 equivalent power days that you can put into your calendar, just to be aware of that flux and the energy that you get, that abundance. So with that abundance, what do you do with that power day? You know, and if you don't have to, let's say, do a day job when maybe you're not so dialed into like fully, and you can do something else that speaks to your spirit a little bit more, your energy a bit more. Put that on that power day and start to pour into that day as, you know, that resonance, and see what you can pull out of it. And be mindful of, again, write those on your calendar. That's one of those things I put on my phone. When a power day comes up, I know the day before. So I'm like, okay, all right, I'm going tomorrow, so I'm gonna make that count type stuff. So
I'll be interested to see if she, because my wife is a 1, and she always come to contact with 1111. So I'd be interested if she also just kind of tap into that, if that's something that a lot of 1s share.
Absolutely. I also wanted to mention, and our sister Joy is going to come in here, that what they're talking about when they say a power day is in enealogy, there's also a belief that the days that are the same numerical have the same numerical sequence as your path are very significant for you, and so that you should always kind of even mark your calendars and be mindful of, okay, I'm on a Wednesday. If you're, let's say, if we're on a Tuesday and you're number 9, this is a day that is consecrated really for you. And you can build energy on these days. Oftentimes it's recommended that you even fast on these days to be able to, get the most connection with yourself. But that's what's being referred to when the Keymakers mention power days.
That's exactly what I was going to say, brother. I was just going to reiterate that it is such a useful tool for this enealogy system to know not only your own number and where that resonates in the week, right? So if you're a number 1, we're talking about Sunday, the power of the sun, and that can also carry you through, as we mentioned, to other 1 days in the week. And even if you want to dive very deep, right, even those compound numbers that have 1s in them, right, they're all bringing in that energy of the sun. And so it's really up to you on how you want to work with the energy. Just know that it's there. And so is this one day going to be a day where you get productive in one particular way? Maybe it's a day where you spend it tending yourself in a different way. But absolutely. And one of the things that I can do is I can reflect on my week, right? I can reflect on things that happened during the week and go, oh my gosh, I did that on that particular day. And also, I love the idea of setting your calendars and your reminders for when your power days are. Wake up in the morning and be like, okay, this is going to be a special day because it's my power day.
So I would recommend Secret Energy's Cosmic Calendar. So in terms of resonance, one of my things was Thursday. I used to always have a bad day on Thursday. Never knew what it meant. It would like everything, I think everything bad that would happen to me when my teenage years happened on a Thursday. And until to the point where I would actually cut class on Thursdays because I knew, like, and I'm not even kidding you. So, feeling the resonance of the day, one of the things that we do with the cosmic calendar is to, like you'll know which chakra stone, until you specifically don't need anything. Like, especially like, if you're new to some of this knowledge, you may not know that, hey, if you wear a certain stone, it will balance out this energy for that specific day. What I learned, throughout my journey is to use my tools. And this is, of course, the resonance of the day. What goes with what? Some of these things are played, in the reality with commercials and all sorts of things that you'll see. Like if you're looking at a commercial, it may make you feel a certain way. So now you can use this resonance for yourself. Once okay, this is the color that goes with the day. This is the stone that goes with the day, until like you feel the energy of the specific day. It doesn't necessarily need to be like your day. You're more powerful on your day. But I've learned to use all of the days. I'm not a 6, but I can tell you I really use the power of the 6 because I feel that energy and can transmute it very well. So it's, it's learning these numbers because we are all of the numbers. So, you first start to use the calendar to know, okay, what's the direction? What's the, what's the color? What's the stone? What's, and, what's the scent? You can even know like, what does Thursday smell like? What does Saturday smell like? Once you know it, then you can recognize it within your body because these are chemical reactions inside of your body. Because now you're really understanding like what's inside and how does it work? What does Saturn feel like? We can actually know because these are energies inside of our bodies, and learning step by step until you're like, oh, I don't need to wear anything. I don't need to know the color because I can now transmute it because it's like this. So that's what I use the cosmic calendar for. So I would definitely recommend that in understanding the resonance of the day, wholeness.
I just add to that. Oh, sorry, Curtis. That are you a number 1 as just a 1, or are you a number 1 as a 10? Because if you're a 10, then that exaggerates or magnifies any 0 after the number magnifies the intensity of the power of the psychic number. because you add, 0 after anything, it just magnifies it. And the other thing with number ones is their powerful day is a Sunday. And the whole process of life is to get light, as Brother Sevan said. So Sunday is the day of the light, the day of the sun. And a lot of number ones tend to have a lot of spinal problems or nervous system problems related to the back of the head or the neck. And so I'm always harping on about sun gazing. So, even lie on your front and allow the sun to really soak into your back. Because as we know, a lot, the true I-ness, the Bindu point, is actually at the back of the head. So energize that as well on a Sunday, and use that day to really power you up for the rest of the week. Wholeness.
Like so many great jewels, and make sure we're taking these down. And then just to do something else to take down, be clearly with those power days. So specifically the 1st of every month, the 19th of every month, the 28th of every month are all power days, and the 10th of every month for you. And if those days even fall, they magnify if they fall on a Sunday. So just start taking account of the influx of current that you have the ability to tap into. Wholeness.
Absolutely. And as our brother's saying, you can always go and do that math for yourself. It probably take about an hour to mark every single power day that you have in the year and put that in your calendar really fast or on a reminder on your phone. And, you get that extra reminder, because sometimes, you can be right on your power day getting sucked and drained and just forget it was your power day and the whole 9. So there is a part of discipline and responsibility that's involved in this. I'm going to keep going. We got another question here. These questions are connected. Actually, that's the next question I'm going to get to. Here's a question here. It's actually from a number 8 female. I see the 8s in the house today. These are other things that we also watch too. I mean, you don't want to over obsess on anything, but I think we had tons of 6s our last build. It seems like 8s are coming in here really strong. And a while ago, one of our friends who's a masseuse that works on quite a few people inside of the tribe was just saying things like, we even noticed that on certain weeks, everyone has the same problem with the same part of their body. And we don't know what that means, but we make notations of this to try to get a better understanding of what we're experiencing collectively. So again, I just wanted to mention that 8 questions kind of rolled out today. So this is a question from an 8 female, and what they're asking is, what is the metaphysical significance of the moon and the star during this Ramadan holiday, and which star is being featured, and how does this symbolically relate to my path? Okay. And I think that this is a multi-layered question. So I will just answer some of the astronomical and occult relationships that surround Ramadan. And I would assume that the moon and the star that you're actually referring to is the crescent moon, and the star that is often used in Islam, which are sacred symbols of the goddess, contrary to what you would believe, since obviously inside of the Islamic tradition now the knowledge of the woman has been extremely suppressed. We actually went over this pretty extensively in last Friday, and I'm not going to take everyone through that. However, I will just mention that the significance of Ramadan, as you see on the day starts with Ramadan on April the 23rd, I believe Ramadan begins. And so if you remember what April the 22nd actually is actually the last day of the choosing of the Easter. So there's this whole 7-day period that it's the Easter part of what we have as our holiday systems. And we know Easter is Easter, and choosing or finding the Easter egg is really about basically finding the goddess within yourself and seeing how you're going to align your powers for the remaining of this cycle or for the next cycle. And this has a lot to do also with farming. It has a lot to do with crops. It has a lot to do with consecration of land. I mean, there's a lot of deep occult and metaphysical things that are surrounded by these days. And that's why we also mentioned why we did the meditation, because we wanted to make sure that as a collective tribe that we all have our energy in the right place, because what you're doing during those times actually equates to the energy that you're dialing in. It's as simple as that. And so, of course, since there was a lot of fear and there was a lot of unsurety, many people were dialing in basically a goddess that doesn't have a strong foundation, a goddess that is about fear and war and death and pestilence and all of that. And there are goddesses for that. That's the most interesting thing about all this, is sometimes when we think of the goddess in general, we just see this lovely, earth-giving, beautiful, fairy-like, and that is not all of the descriptions of the goddess. That is a part of actually the programming. So there's a goddess really for everything, and when we say the goddess, what we're saying is the energy that you're going to be dialing into or harmonizing with on the physical plane. It's very important, again, to remember the divine feminine is related to everything on the physical plane as things here being vessels being filled with light. So the original significance behind the pentagram and the crescent moon is actually a relation to the occultation of Venus behind the sun, actually, not necessarily the lunar body. Sometimes when we see that crescent, it's often interpreted as the moon, but it also is a reference to the sun in this case, because Venus actually traces a crescent behind the sun during this particular phase. This is an occultation between the planet Venus and the sun, which brings in this level of power. Now, obviously, Ramadan as a period after this is occurring is now, as you can read it yourself, it says Ramadan is a time of spiritual reflection, self-improvement, and heightened devotion and worship. So you can imagine then that after you've chose your Easter or your energy, now you're going to begin to go to work with that energy, because we are also stepping into the time where there's a lot of fertility and a lot of things that are happening. So if you look at nature right now, you'll see a lot of the plants are budding or going into the pollination. You see seasons are changing. You see the rain is coming. So this the thing about metaphysics is it's not just a guess. You should be able to see if it's the truth, everything that corresponds to that truth around you. And that also allows you to be able to remove the falsehood, because the falsehood is here. Because as you know, after Ramadan, a little bit more time, then you're on Hajj. And Hajj is a pilgrimage where you're now going to what is what they know as the Kaaba in Mecca, which of course is what we say is the black box. And we were able to fully identify that anything to do with the box was actually a reference to the sexual component of the female. We will keep it G-rated here today since we didn't have any disclaimers. But this cave of wonders, if you may, as they call it in Aladdin, is where everything is produced from. And so there is now a journey or a pilgrimage that must take place where you now go to that depth of yourself and you begin to circumambulate this. Now, of course, all this is being done externally, obviously, because now it's been switched over to a patriarchal tradition. So everything that was once done inside is now being done externally for less of the effect, if not any of the effect. So the reality here is that we have to bring these rights and these laws and these rules about the metaphysics of nature and how things work back internally, and then they'll make perfect sense to us. So that's my insight on those specific days. And of course, how that relates to your path is each of us have an opportunity to choose the energy, especially during the right time. Timing is big here. Order is big here. So as we talked about, even the steps on the ladder and all this stuff is about timing, coordination, and discipline. So this does relate to every single person on every path about the energy that they're choosing, and when it's time to actually dial into, hey, this is now where I'm selecting the energy that I want to harmonize or connect with. So I'll leave it open for the key makers. They want to add anything to what is the metaphysical significance of the moon and the star, or the crescent and the star during the Ramadan holiday.
So I'm not specifically knowledgeable about Ramadan, so I'll give that disclaimer. However, for me, one of the most significant lectures Sevan gave about the last, I don't know, like about a year or so ago, or almost, it was a series of lectures of looking to each planet or each energy through the lens of the moon. And so each day we went through and looked at that, and in terms of like when we got to look at Saturn from the lens of the moon, what came for me was that Saturn was like a reflection, in terms of Saturn being, the old man, and then the moon being that mother, that older mother energy or grandmother energy. So, and seriously, like during that time, the picture that kept floating in my mind was actually Saturn on the boat, which was Saturn on the boat, and then the moon, the grandmother on one side and Saturn being on the other side, which would be like a reflective image of this energy. So, in terms of like how you're looking at the moon's energy and the significance of this period, it would literally be two sides of the same thing, the female energy and the male energy, just like, but an older, female and male energy looking at each other. And I know like many times we see Saturn as the old man, but for me, it really became the old woman, looking at herself from that side. So I do think sometimes when we go into the esoteric knowledge, you sort of have to see what picture comes into your mind or into your heart when someone is explaining something. I do that a lot with Sevan when he gives his lectures, because then you feel the transmission of like what's your knowledge of this thing, what's your inner gnosis of how to look at these energies and trust in that, in terms of like looking at the moon. It tells us so much, again, when we were looking through the lens of all the energies, through the lens of the moon was very transformative because it was telling so much of a story. So if me as whatever number you at, that's what you're doing. You're looking through that lens to all of the other energies, so pay attention for you, not so much what other people their perception is, but what is your perception when something is being explained to you and how you see it. Wholeness.
This is also, from what the sister was saying, very key in relationships and communication, to have the ability to see through another person's eyes and knowing their path and knowing how they're seeing things is super important if you want to actually have a dialogue versus a monologue inside of a relationship. Our next two questions are actually about relationships, so I'll still leave this open for anyone who wants to add anything else to that previous question. All right, so let's jump right into it then. So this is a question from a number 7, and it's a number 7 female. And because the next question is also from a number 7 female, either they're the same or this is an extremely uncanny day. So either way, we can deal with it. So this is a question from a number 7 female. I'll ask both of these questions together. They say, every time my boyfriend, number 4, is mad or in a bad mood, I get a horrible feeling in the pit of my stomach. And this has always happened to me, though, and I'm just wondering what your advice would be. And then the next question is from a number 7 female that says, I have been with a male for over a half of my life, on and off, and currently off. Do number 7 and 4 make good life partners? Okay. And I just want to address this really briefly. I'm going to let y'all jump in because, yeah, I love the relationship doctors that are here on the line. Much respect. And this is a reoccurring question that we always have about relationships. And I guess that's going to be the case anyway, because life is one huge relationship, right? And we talked very briefly about, things like anxiety, like when you mentioned specifically that in the pit of my stomach, I have this energy. And it's basically an energy where unless a person feels okay again, then you don't feel okay. One of the biggest things that we brought up is how in that relationships become again so dynamic that if we're going through an amazing situation in life, maybe we got a big time promotion, won the lottery, or some windfall has happened, things are going great, but if your relationship's on the rocks, then you don't feel that. And then likewise, you could just be having a horrible time in the reality as far as, let's say, finances and things are just not panning out for you, but you're in a great relationship. So none of that even matters because, of course, that you found this love and that's how you're sustaining yourself. So relationships are very dynamic and they're very important for what they do in our lives. And so it's very important for us also to fess up to how relationships should be properly conducted and how much energy a person should or how much energy and sway a person should really have over you. And ultimately, it comes into maturity. And this comes after your ability to go through multiple relationships and see the cycles and see the patterns. Always look for the patterns. And then most importantly, see how you're causing those patterns. And also realize that the goal here in life is actually for you as a female to unlock your awareness of the goddess within yourself and all of what there is to do that. It is limitless. in every single extent. And as a female, there is nothing that you actually need from a male, because we actually look to the females to bring us everything that we have here in the physical plane, contrary to what you're actually seeing in society right now. This becomes very important because as the society stands, if you're constantly depending on a male to bring you something that you're actually supposed to be bringing, you can see how both of you may never have it. So if you have all the abundance and you have all this power, you have to stand in your power and realize that that shift in mood thing in the pit of your stomach is a perfect indicator that you haven't actually learned who you are truly and what power you really have. And then likewise, the male will then be concluded on his exploration, meaning that he'll see you at that stopping point and that inability to be able to solve and to know and to be sure. And then he'll only begin to reflect that. And then maybe he wants to even go even further and explore something else because he'll feel like he reached a conclusion there. So I will just say that in kind of summarizing a rather very long and very complex conversation, and then also a stance that we have to have in life about what I'm calling relationships 2.0. Meaning that the old dynamic of how we've been handling things in relationships is showing us consistently. You see it on the show, you see it in your lives, you see it in your parents' lives, are showing us consistently that there's something a bit off that we need to fix there. And because relationships, again, are so dynamic, once we do that, then we'll actually change our entire reality. So let's see what the Keymakers have to say about these two questions.
I will jump on and just, I guess, remind us that we're talking, the question was from a number 7 female, and that is Qicong, and the partner is a number 4 male, right? And that is Rahu. So Rahu and Qicong are very complementary for each other, the number 4 being the head of the dragon, Rahu, and the 7 being the tail of the dragon, Qicong. And so this dynamic can be very complementary. And I think it's important to keep in mind that these are moon energies, and they are really on opposite sides of the spectrum from each other. And I know for myself as a 4, this is one of the things that Eneology has been such a gift to me, is to be able to, view myself in the lens of relationships and then how I interact with others. And I think for 4s and 7s, these numbers, as all of them have their challenges, one of the things with 4s and 7s is we have some difficulties. We have a lot of change that happens, we bring it on or it happens to us. And I think oftentimes change can be very difficult in relationships in general. So when you understand maybe how much is self-caused versus how much is an external cause, and understanding that both of you are under that dynamic, I think it kind of helps you find common ground. Which is, again, what a lot of these numbers do, is they help you find some commonalities and then understand where your challenges are, and to work together in this dynamic. I also do want to say that 4s can get angry. We talked about a little bit about evil joy last time, and we have some techniques to kind of work through our anger as we all can. So again, just learning the dynamic of the 4 and the 7, but absolutely these can be complementary energetics. Wholeness.
I got joy in my heart. I got joy from the start. It's a book that I linked to me, some understanding. It's called The Mastery of Love. And it talked about you have joy. You have this superpower, I love to call it, to be able to turn it on. But being a 7, you're very intuitive. You're very, you can connect telepathically. It's a natural inquisition for you. And being that there's someone you love, you give your heart to. And typically in the story, it goes, a man who did not believe in love and met somebody who felt that exact same way about love. So he found himself giving to her. So at the end of the story, to cut it extremely short, he had his love, and it was compressed in a star, and he took this star out, or this light, and he gave it to the individual, this fragile, beautiful thing he built up over time. And she got distracted and dropped it, and shattered in a billion pieces. So leaving him. But in the moral of the story is basically, you can't give somebody that much power over something that's so fragile. That's yours. Like, it's being able to have the you give it, but you don't give it so that it can pretty much like send you into like a type of distortion. So actually, I got some tips from Sister Niva. She gave me a yantra that actually I drove in the hood of my car. I put the yantra in the hood of my car so the sun and reflection reflect on it. So it gave this like a holographic image while I'm driving. So I'm driving through Jupiter, driving through this joyous, this planet, this thing that I know that for me gives me joy. It reminds me of my power. So that anytime it's a wavering of it, I can be like, no, it only takes me but a couple seconds to snap back into, I have the power to have this joy within. And being that I am also intuitive, be mindful of these your connections with everybody that you connect with. But remember that you don't give them all of your everything that takes your power out. Remember, you have control over it. So wholeness.
And also because of the K2 being the body and Rahu being the head, the relationship between Rahu and K2 very much works if K2, the number 7, is very supportive of the Rahu. It's funnily enough, it doesn't work the other way around. So you'll always find that in that relationship that K2 will always be doing a lot more in supporting Rahu to get to where Rahu needs to go to. Wholeness.
Thanks for that, Niva. Also, for the number 7, for me, she talked about like feeling that energy in her stomach. I'm very intuitive and know things, or I should say feel things. And this is where I feel it. So depending on where in your stomach you feel this energy or the tightness, pay attention to that. This is your intuition, your inner knowing talking to you. So, there's different places that I feel in my stomach when I deal with people. And if you start trusting that, you'll know who to trust, where to go. So for me, the bottom of my stomach, I don't trust. Meaning like when it's that low, it's like, it's a warning, depending on which side, or if it's higher, closer to the heart. For me, is like more of a trusting that person. If I feel anything in my lower belly, I usually tend to back away. So I do use a lot of discernment, with when you feel like, so because of that energy, you are like the body is your energy field, really, like, because your body less or something, so it's like you feel a lot of this energy. So I would say that's one of your powers. Start to trust it, start to grow it. Notice where in your stomach you're feeling tightness, looseness when you're dealing with different people and different energies. So that will serve you as you learn to use it. It will tell you right away who to trust, how to get into business, everything. So I definitely trust that. Sometimes I have a feeling about somebody, and then you're like, oh, let me give them a second chance or a third chance, because I'm very open-hearted. And then that first, intuition as to saying, okay, I didn't trust that person from the beginning, or usually pays off to say, okay, yeah, I was right. And you hate to do that. However, as I get older, I definitely learned to trust my gut. Wholeness.
I would like to add to that, being a Destiny 7, for us, we're very, very intuitive. And to ignore it, it would be a great misfortune, personally, to ignore your intuition. And if as a Destiny 7 as well, if you feel that with your partner, whatever the case may be, please pay attention to it. And I want to make note of this too, is that just because the person according to the numerology might be a great fit for you as a number, doesn't mean that they necessarily are a great fit for you as a person. So as a 7, you have to use your own discernment and to really dive deep, because again, you're just asking a certain question, but we don't know the full details and the ramifications of the relationship. So you would just have to really be intuitive and really feel that. Because me personally, as a 7, anytime I feel a negative vibe or some energy is not right, like Wigeby said, Déesse said, if you feel it in the womb and it doesn't feel right, pay attention to that. That person might not be the best fit for you. That situation may not be the best fit for you. So wholeness.
It's interesting. I mean, it's wow. It just got so much in what everybody's sharing, and it seems like both questions they talk about a 7 and a 4, and my wife being a Destiny 7, and I'm a Psychic 4, and we are pretty much on two different ends of the moon. But sometimes we get it. Sometimes we are flowing. Sometimes when the moon is in that space. So I would challenge you to look at the moon and see how your relationship connects around that moon. And sometimes it feels like we're on completely different pages, you know, and although it seems like those two numbers doesn't resonate together, when we are on the same page, we take things to another level. When we're not on the same page, it can be a push and pull. We on two different sides of the house or two different sides of the moons. But to, you know, what Sister Paige say, it is about you recognizing, you know, trusting that gut, trusting what is right for you, but also, you know, identifying and realizing that it all works when you know, begin to reconnect with, you know, one aspect of yourself and understanding how the elements around you work when connecting with your partner. Honest.
Wholeness. I have one more thing as well, family. Then in real time, the moon is directly connected with, or celestial connection is the gut, I believe, the lower intestine, and breaking down things. And it's tapped into communication as well. And I found, because my partner, my queen, is a 7 as well, a psychic 7. And I found sometime when communication wasn't fitting like the puzzle, we know it can be, fasting personally, and even fasting together only amplifies that connection, because now the gut is clear to make those connections, because, you know, with the gut, they call it your second brain. So sending these signals, you make sure you clear these pathways so you can receive the communication that need to be, or lack thereof. Sometimes some things don't need to be said. What's understood most times don't need to be said, and you can really tap into that. You're already telekinesis, or your telepathic side, when the gut is most clear, connecting with that moon energy. So that's another aid. So juices, fasting once a day. Not once a day, once a week, or however you can fit it into your schedule. But that's something that you really want to paint as one of the things that can aid in the solutions of it. Wholeness.
Wholeness, family. Thank you so much, Keymakers, for all those beautiful insights. And remember, surgeons work, and never so much more than the 4 and the 7, as everyone was building on these numbers. Again, we know that 4 and 7 is Rahu and Ketu, and these are literally the two nodes of the moon. And when we say also when relationships complement one another, because I think specifically if we look at these two numbers, whether it says that there are friend numbers or enemy numbers is based on whether these numbers are, whether this partner is going to be a challenge. And sometimes we need a challenge in our lives because they assist us in fixing things that may be a part of our path that we're looking to change. So what better to learn that from than a master of someone who's already dialing in that energy. But I say it's surgeon works also because if you understand the mythos, you understand that they used to work as one, but they were severed. And so if you imagine, you know, who can put a head back on a body other than somebody that knows extreme surgeons work. And then also, if you think about this being electromagnetic, when something breaks and you try to put it together, it actually resists each other for a moment, like trying to put two poles of a magnet back together on that same magnet that broke. They're going to resist each other, and that's where you get the differences. And if we're saying surgeons work, what we're saying is it does take you to be able to understand how to go into a relationship like this and really make it work, because if you can make it work, it equals something so dynamic and so great, because you have a very powerful being that generally has been operating in a only partially or in a broken way, and you put them back together. But I think that Paige made a very important statement, is to remember that sometimes you can think of trying to do that with a person externally, and what we're really saying first is to actually do that to yourself. So if you're a number 7 has a tendency to need the proper guidance, which is the head, and to be more stable at making decisions. And 7s have a tendency to be a bit of thrill seekers. So all of that is going to affect the relationship in a certain way. And so it's just important to remember that all this stuff is real time. It's very deep. It does take you to be very serious about the results that you're looking for. And if you want to bring something together, because something like this, you can't be halfway in it, like, I don't know if it's going to work. And someone has to take charge in this to actually begin to mend the process together. And then, as our sister Niva is saying, generally as a 7, then you have to be ready to let the 4 be the head, if you may, and then you carrying on the rest of what needs to be done. And if you don't see that as a part of the design, which is where genealogy works in relationships so well, if you don't see that as being even possible with where you're at in your life or where this person is or what you guys are working on, either you have the opportunity to come in and to make some real changes, or you need to be really on point with your gut feeling and what that's actually telling you and how that's playing out in your life. So definitely great insights here from the Keymakers. I'm going to keep going because our questions are still rolling in. It's a question from female number 1. Actually, excuse me. Let me keep going here. It's actually from an 8 male. Yeah. So 8 male says, my brother is a 3 and says that he started having telepathy. And then he developed paranoia and delusions of grandeur. Since then, he's been in a psych ward 4 times. How can I help ground him?
So real quickly, one of the things that I think if someone is under a doctor's, a doctor's care, you sort of have to, first and foremost pay attention to that, and because they are under a doctor's care. So I just want to make that disclaimer. If you're saying that he is in the hospital or anything like that, so I would take that advice first and foremost. Wholeness.
I wanted to jump in and share actually a meditation that Déesse had reminded me of, that Ho'oponopono, because it became, I want to say, popularized from a shaman out in Hawaii, because he used this meditation to help patients that were in the psych wards in Hawaii. And it's just a repetitive meditation. And basically it's the concept is radical responsibility, that everything that is presenting is within. So all is self. And therefore there isn't anything that can be affected in some way by addressing it as a part, an extension of ourselves. And there are wonderful videos, lots of videos on YouTube where you can get the meditation on replay, on repeat, which I find to be very powerful, because even sometimes it's one of the powerful things about technology. It can repeat things, it can calculate things and do things that us as humans sometimes may not be as diligent with it. But the 4 declarations of Ho'oponopono are I love you, thank you, please forgive me, I'm sorry. And it's just a repetitive, like a mantra meditation of these sentiments, where you would kind of offer that in the space and hold your brother, in the light around with that, you're kind of offering that energy to him. Wholeness.
And just with Gail Forsett as well, like as a brother, right? Like I've got a brother that's an 8, and like it's that warriorship and that kinship and that ferocious loving and compassion. So the fact that you're here and a part of this community, you're endowed with deep spiritual gifts as well. If this information and knowledge can be received by you and you're engaged, then you also have the capacity to support. And that's obviously the question that was asked. So I would be able to kind of cultivate a practice for myself where I'm tuning into my brother's energy, whether he's in the ward or wherever he is, being able to know that you're part of the same soul family, but also in this lifetime you're flesh and blood, right? So being able to also develop your spiritual gifts and call in support, whether it's through to your ancestors or to your higher self and to your brother's higher self, you know. So if he is kind of being a bit, let's say, discombobulated by these telepathic abilities or these energies, right? Because, you know, once you kind of open some portals, you also start to kind of open other doors, and you have the potential there to develop the skills to help close those doors and help clear energy that doesn't have access to him anymore. And you can do that by severing cords or contracts or energies, right? We're spiritual beings. So there's a bunch of resources that you can look for revocations as well as also affirmations. Andrew Bartzis talks a little bit about this. And for revocations, you know, as a sovereign being, like our word is law. And Sevan talks a lot about this, like words descend down into this form as a word is a sword, right? So as you start to kind of affirm your word as law, and you say, you know, I, as flesh and blood, caretaker of my brother, affirm now that all beings, entities, thought forms, vibrations that are accessing his field, that are harvesting his energy, that are confusing him and causing him trauma, to access him no longer. I make this word in proclamation of our family and our soul lineage. I call forth all high vibrational beings to be here and to witness this, and place all of these beings in a spiritual court of equity, and that any energy that they continue wish to persist can persist no longer, and that this is made in love and compassion, and that those beings will be have their day in due court, in terms of the Galactic Council and to the Central Sun, and are all part of this creative force. But in terms of being able to access my family and my brother, you are no longer able to access that field. And I sever you henceforth now in across all timelines and dimensions. And you can obviously act particular, tools that work with that, rituals, call to the directions, call to totems, be able to see your brother, you know, if he's got an affinity for a particular animal, even being able to see your brother cloaked in the wings of an owl or an eagle, being able to protect him, being able to kind of clear out any energies that, you know, where it's like in different esoteric traditions, they talk about therianthropy, which is like animorphs, being able to shapeshift into different animals. And a lot of the shamans in all of the world have used these particular traditions of being able to call in through the dances or the feathers, or to be able to move and use sound acoustically, and to kind of use these animal aspects of what we are, because these animal beings aren't just existing on the earth plane, they're also existing in the cosmos, you know. So the tiger has a medicine, the eagle has a medicine, the bear has a medicine, you know. And being able to tap into these energies and support your brother, like send that energy to your brother, like full send him in an army of love and support, you know. And that work that you're doing there is obviously in the unseen, you know. And if your intention is there, then that's everything. And then in terms of the scene, just being with your brother, like you're an 8, you're a long haul, you're aware, you're very sensitive of the light and the dark, but being able just to be there in his presence and just do the simple things, the earthly things, you know, whether it's playing chess or checkers, or whether it's, you know, being able to do something that takes his mind off those things, you know, because psychically he's obviously opened something. And we don't get taught these things in schools. We don't have someone helping us these things. There's no, okay, this is the path that you need to go down, you know. And that's why when we climb the ladder of light, sometimes if you put too much fuel through one, you can kind of open something. So yeah, there's a few things there you can do. So hopefully some of that resonates. Wholeness, brother.
I wanted to.
Thank you, brother.
Actually, I did want to, I really want that to get dialed in, because what the brother is really giving you is the key to this, because it's actually the key to intercession, because, that's what you're asking for in this case as a family member, to intercede. And I just wanted to make sure that everyone is very clear just how powerful this brother's answer is, because you're getting the actual tools right there. And to realize also that, as you say, my brother is a 3, so this is the Jupiter path, and that he says he starts having this telepathy, right? And then this stuff starts happening. So as the brother Alistair was saying, that he obviously tapped into something. We don't have all the details. So there could be music, or a certain type of music. There could be some substance use. there could be more to this than, you know, basically the probability of someone just kind of going crazy and they end up in the psych ward after being normal. There's something that actually occurred. So knowing what exactly occurred actually allows you to dial in a bit more with what type of projections you need to be putting into play. And just as our brother was saying, what kind of honorings that you need to be putting around and energy that you need to be calling in and how you need to be fortifying the space. So I just wanted to give a moment to let that person know that, you know, instead of having a bunch of answers, it's best to have the precise explanation of what you need to do if you want to help him ground, as you mentioned, and to give him the best opportunity to connect into the space in a whole way. Go ahead, Sister Paige. I just wanted to, you know, give him that brief pause for a minute.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, that was a beautiful, beautiful, you know, response, brother. I was just going to add something very briefly to that. Excellent. For this particular situation, you know, and for all situations, it's important that, you know, we actively upgrade the DNA for our family members in the event that they cannot. So that's also you answering your own question as well, is that, you know, you having to upgrade yourself as well to be able to tap into what is going on with your brother, and showing that support as well in the event that they're having an episode. Is, you know, for individuals that deal with mental health challenges, is to actually be there, be present while they're going through that particular experience. Because for people that deal with dissociative or just derealization or just detachment, they need that that confirmation of authenticity of a actual person that's there, a real person that's there, versus what they're experiencing. And also for you too to tap in yourself. It'll be a challenge for you to tap into yourself to see actually if your brother is dealing with something spiritually that he's having trouble handling, or dealing with something of the mind, of some kind of deficiency or something like that. So I just wanted to add.
Also wanted to quickly add, there's a resource found some years ago. It's called Spiritual Emergency, and it actually links what in modern society might be called a mental health disorder with a spiritual root to it. The idea being that we live in modern society, so we don't have all the wise women and the, you know, the shamans and all of those networks of wisdom intact like they were in, you know, indigenous or ancient societies. And so it kind of just creates a continuum. So, because sometimes, you know, there's judgment around, oh, it's this thing or it's that thing. And I think Alistair and everyone has kind of made clear that there, you know, there's a continuum, right? And there's a continuum to it. But it's a great resource to kind of link those two.
And also to add, thank you, Alistair, for your lovely response. And as well as the Andrew Bartzis declaration, we have a declaration of sovereignty as well. And but one thing that I have found when I have helped family members is very much to do a practice called the Tarpanam, which is to offer food to my ancestors, because my family is related to me genetically and through our DNA, offering food to the ancestors who are our elders. And it's simply every morning getting a little bit of rice and a little bit of black sesame seeds in your hands, and you put a silver coin on top of that, and you put some cold water on that, and you call forward 6 generations of ancestors from your mother's side. And if you can remember their names, well and good. If you can't, you just call them forward. And 6 generations of ancestors from your father's side. And you simply say to them that I'm offering this food to you. I always say the Ho'oponopo with it as well. I love you, please forgive me, thank you, and I'm sorry. And I'm giving you this food. Please bless my family or any particular person. And you pour the rice and the sesame seeds into the sink, but you keep the silver coin for the next day. And there are very auspicious days to do this. The 28th of February is a day in the Vedic calendar when apparently all the ancestors come onto this earth. And if you can do this as a grand offering on that particular day. It's very auspicious. But I tend to do it like I do it for a whole, you know, I if there's something going on in the family, I'll say I'll do it for the next 6 months for the whole family. And it literally, you can feel the energy moving through, and because you're feeding your own elders within your own DNA. So wholeness.
Wholeness, family.
Wholeness.
I think we're going to have to activate some rapid fire here. We got about 10 questions. We're at 10:54. We began at 9. So I guess, let's see, hold on real quick, 9:30. Okay, yeah, we began at 9:30. All right, so we'll give it about, let's say 30 more minutes into today, and let's see how many questions that we can get through. We are activating rapid fire. I need a little sound bite for that. And but wow, you know, deep insights here. And that's what we do, of course, at the Keymakers, is we get into some of the deepest aspects of life. And even if you find that you're not dealing with these situations currently, it's always good to increase your wisdom, because you're able to assist others in the event that they're experiencing these things. This next question is from a Path 5. It's a female, and she's saying, because of disagreements, I don't speak to certain family members. My dad is one of them. Should I reach out to heal the relationship? I feel it doesn't affect me, but might affect them. And I just wanted to add, obviously, number 5 is the path of Mercury. Communication is very important. So while you may not be thinking it's affecting you, I think this question has brought up today just the awareness that it does affect things. And I'll let the Keymakers see what they have as insights of, you know, whether communicating with family members should be in line again. And of course, just remember there's other ways to communicate sometimes than just talking to someone verbally. And I think that we were just talking about that with family members. And even if you have family members that you're not getting along with, those family members could be direct and would be direct stand-ins for ancestral family members. So I believe what our sister Niva was saying would apply here. Let's see if there's anything additional to this question.
I would like to add to that. So with my parents being both 5s, and actually my best friend is a 5, I always emphasize that you all are masters of communication, and that you have to proactively communicate if something is going on, an issue is going on, because me personally, there are certain paths where we just do not deal with conflict. Like as a number 9, I don't necessarily deal with as much conflict anymore. If I'm frustrated or angry, I just let it go to the side. And I'm working on that for the most part. But it's a 5's role, if there's a conflict involved where there's not a lot of communication, to talk. That is your gift, is to talk, network, and be a person of just a master of language, learning how to communicate intuitively, learning how to communicate verbally, and with just, you know, your emotions, you know, that's the mastery of the 5, you know, so to speak. And so, like, if you don't necessarily do that, you can overanalyze or just fall back. And, you know, your role is to be the one to proactively deal with the communication. So, you know, that's mainly a challenge for you. But it's specifically your role as a 5.
Tapping into that too, family. All right, so one of your greatest gifts as a 5 is also, my pops is a 5. But surrendering to the law of change, like we said, it's not easy at all. But knowing that everybody changes every day, every second, it's a new shift. But sometimes we carry that last experience on into the future. So when we encounter that person again, we bring that old experience, that memory of them, that pretty much makes a border between you, them, and that now moment that y'all are currently in. So having the patience enough to buff that space out sometime first, even, you know, you can even, I used to speak to the person before I even reached them, and to begin to buff that out. So maybe I might incur some of the memories from the last one, but I'm willing to get through that, you know, to get to the next space, this now space that we're in now. And, you know, being the art of communication that you're growing to be, groomed to be, and you're influenced, you can dance right through that. And so be patient with yourself. but remember the now moment. And people shift, pops change. You know, he might still hold that grudge a little longer. Again, my dad a little Bob as well, but you can get through to them. You have it. And again, we have, like Sister said, that connecting to their mom or her grandparents that are all around, your great grandparents, I guess. Talk to their elder. You know, like if they're still around, speak to them. Or if they're not around, speak to them in their etheric space. And like, I'm going to talk to your son. I'm going to talk to your daughter. That's what we need to get through to heal self. So, yeah, hoax, got the fire.
I agree in a lot of ways. We can communicate with so many different people, and sometimes we get through it. But when it comes to our family, it's like it's a thick wall. And you could be a master communicator, but something about just that person, that connection with the person in your own lineage, it makes it a lot difficult. And, we all at some point has been victims of that. I made peace with my father before he made his transition. So sometimes moments come where it's hard to make that connection with your family. And I'd always encourage usually just having a third person, if you can, somebody that both of you trust, to at least be in there and just to try to identify what is some of the basis of this communication. Because when I'm speaking to other youth, it's like I'm saying the same thing that fathers or their parents are saying. But when I say it, they get it. Where I say the same exact thing that somebody else said. And sometimes there's just this block that your family can't hear. There's other layers of pain that is there. So maybe try to, if you find that there's nobody else in the family that can make that connection, get somebody from the outside that both of you trust that can maybe help to begin that healing.
I think that's some powerful. I think that's some powerful. Excuse me, sister. I think that's some powerful advice right there from our brother Life. Just remember the laws of communication, and when there's a dispute, how do you resolve a dispute? When there needs to be communication, then sometimes you have to go to arbitration. And as a number 5 in communication, you have to be aware of those kind of things. Like you have to know, well, okay, if I'm not going to talk to them directly, or they don't want to hear from me, or I'm not getting the results that I'm looking for from them, let me find an arbitrator, somebody that can go in between me and them. Often our families have a bit more impact on us. I always say it's because they're under our armor. Because what happens is that, let's say if you meet somebody on the streets and you guys, hit it off or whatever, and then at 2 weeks they do something to upset you, you may be able to let them go. But a family member, it's not going to be that easy. And so you have that person still in your consciousness, but you may have a disagreement with them. So it's kind of like, it's not something that you can let go. So it's bothering you more than it would from someone else. And so this makes it also very imperative as the 5 to make sure all your lines of communication are open, because those are just like phone lines, if you may, or communication lines that are blocked. And so getting in that arbitrator, I think is powerful advice here for dealing with things and being able to adjust yourself to the energy properly. Go ahead, Sister Niva, excuse me.
Thank you. So, and also family members, we talk about the all is self aspect, the fractal aspects of ourselves. And family members, we're in our families because of the deepness, the intensity of the karmic energies that we have with them that need to be, that why we've incarnated into our family structure to resolve that. And so, communication is not just by speaking. And as a destiny number 5, I have found that for me personally, my strongest form of communication has always been with Vipassana, or when I've lost my voice. And when I've gone into very, very deep levels of meditation, funnily enough, the universe, the omniverse, my innerverse always makes me lose my voice. And that is when my 3 teenage daughters listen to me the most, when I'm the quietest. I can also communicate with other members of my family who I live with the most. And that is either through my art, through my cooking, through my presence, through other forms of communication. For example, when my father passed away, there was a moment when my mother was going through a depression, obviously missing the love of her life, and I could not communicate with her, and I was heartbroken. But the way I communicated with her afterwards was just quietly painting by myself on her kitchen table, so that she came in to join me, and we communicated in silence, listening to her music, and that built up something with us. With my eldest daughter, again, we connect with music. With my middle daughter, it may be through reading something with her. With my youngest daughter, we cook together. So there's different forms of communication and holding that sense of presence with someone. And one of the things that Mercury has to learn, the karma of Mercury, is karma yoga. And karma yoga means being of service to somebody through that communication. And so communication is a very wide spectrum, and it's not through the spoken word, because it's often the spoken word that actually carries a lot of energies that the person doesn't want to listen to. Wholeness.
Wholeness. Let's get this rapid fire activated. I got some more for you. I got about 6 more for you. So hold on.
Okay,
keep your mic open. Here goes one. Actually, I'm gonna answer this one really briefly, and then we'll move on to the next question. We have about 8 questions in here, so just get ready to take it away. 15 seconds, everyone. Let's see what we can do. This question is actually from a number 2. They say, is there really matter in consciousness? Is matter real? And I'm just going to answer this really briefly. Matter is ma'at. Okay, so let's just realize again, the divine feminine is like a vessel. It is receiving all the light, and then the light comes in and fills up the vessel. We call that matter. Of course, it can be dispersed, meaning that matter is, if it's congealed as you're pouring it in, then it becomes all like one mass, if you may. But then if it's dispersed, it returns itself to the light. So any of the, or to lighter densities, okay, gaseous things. So any of these questions or any of these comments that matter is not really real and all that is a direct blow at, once again, which you'll find a lot of evidence of, that someone is saying that the goddess is not real, or someone saying the divine feminine is not real and trying to take power away from that. So that's why those things become so confusing. It's like, is matter really real? Are we really in a place? Am I really real? And then you start thinking you're fake, and then this leads to a bunch of foolishness. So let's just stay grounded in what we know, and matter is ma'at. So this next question here from a 7, a male, is saying, I know it's important for me to manage my sexual energy and my semen. How do you choose that mystery door you spoke about? I continuously choose that raw orgasm feminine energy every time. So that's what they're saying, is that, you know, they want to take option number 2 or door number 2, but every time door number 1 and the instant feminine gratification of the raw orgasm seems to win. What do we got? 15 seconds, Keymakers.
I'll add to that. You being a 7, you're very spiritual. You're very spiritual. And you would do yourself a disservice choosing that every single time. Sometimes you really do have to use, most times as a 7, you really do have to choose your spiritual energy. You know what I mean? That's a depth decision that you'll have to make, a mature decision that you'll have to make in regards to that. I think we would need a little more details in terms of what specifically you're going through. But yeah, like you would have to, you know, consciously choose that for yourself. Wholeness.
Also, this is directly related to your current, you know, just to give you some incentive, because you're so spiritual, this is directly related to your current, which would affect your money, you know. So be mindful of all of that, you know, your energy, anything that, your abundance. So, you know, book recommendations, all the Mental Chia books, you know. So just an FYI, if you're not there yet, so just learn. As you know, we're brainiacs as well, so you can just learn the knowledge. So just learning the knowledge will open the doorway for you.
Oh, Nis, that's still jumping in with sphincter exercises, like breathing. And again, you fall off the horse. You know, even if you're in a nocturnal emission, like you're sleeping, and it happens. Get back on, you know, get a calendar. How long can you do it? Like challenge yourself to go into the space after like 15 seconds.
You got a 15-second timer over there, brother? We need to get everybody a 15-second timer.
Yeah, get me one of those. And you know, with the nature of using the energy as well, like even if you don't hold on to it, like, you know, the path of Tantra teaches us about weaving that energy, right? So if you are going to be using that seed and using that energy, then, you know, you use it in an expansive way, you know, whether at the point of your ejaculation and you're feeling that sensation, you're sending it out into your life, you're feeling the vibration, whether it's a project, whether it's your relationships, whether it's your finances, whatever it is, being able to cultivate and use that energy. And, you know, like even getting deep into it, like even using the seed, like putting it back into the earth, you know, being able to kind of like honor it, right? So it's high vibrational energy. So use it. Cheers. Wholeness.
Cheers. We're going to keep going with it. And yeah, lots of advice there. You know, sometimes you have to jog back and forth in your mind of the benefits, like what are going to be the benefits, and sometimes what are going to be the misfortunes, depending on how you function. But it's very important to think about, you know, the door number 2 is what you may not know that you're going to receive. So there should be even more traction there. And maybe you also shift the gears and say, well, what am I not getting because I keep doing this? And as our sister is saying, as a 7, you know, you have a very powerful spiritual force. So if you're kind of wondering where that is, then, you know, that may be where it's happening at. And then on top of that, though, because, you know, we don't want to make this Catholic Church, as our brother is saying, you can always utilize this energy and start visualizing what you're doing with this energy. And then, of course, if it's just coming out somewhere, make sure that it's put into nature properly. And that's going to fare much more better than it would if you didn't do that. Here's another question from a number 8 female. And she's saying, I'm 26 and I don't have like-minded people in my life. Everyone seems asleep. How can I contribute to those around me to help spread this awareness and bring people to be more present? I will say that you definitely have some conscious people around you. You're here today with us, Wholeness. It's glad to see you. And don't feel alone, because every time you take a breath, you are bringing in one of those high vibration friends. Every time you drink some water, you're bringing in one of those high vibration friends. But this sister's asking how can she contribute to those around her and to help spread this awareness and bring people to be more present. And actually, I'm going to rapid fire this question because I believe we talked about this again last week about how she's also a Destiny 1, that you have right now, especially millions of people who are ready for a message. And so this question kind of gets turned back on oneself. It's like, so what have you set up so far to be able to transmit this message so others will know that you're there so that they can receive it? If you're spending a lot of time with, let's say, non-like-minded people, that's a direct result of not actually pushing out the vibration of what you truly are. Because when you push out the vibration of what you truly are, you attract those kind of people, because the other ones, they just don't want to hear it. And so, you know, discovering your uniqueness, spending time with yourself as a number 8, you know, long haul path. You're also 26, so there's a double 8. So this could be a time for you to really go into your own mastery and figure out what you're going to be doing with your life. Like our sister Paige, she's got, you know, her page. Everyone here has her page. So anyway, everybody here has something that they do. And I can still remember the times where I was on 1 subscriber, 2 subscribers, and I was clicking my heels like, yes, there's one person. It's crazy. You know, you would think that you would want to start off with 1 million subscribers, but it doesn't. Even just having that one person there listening to you is enough. And you could get that on YouTube. So I'm rapid firing this question. I'm going to go to the next one, but this is just saying, like, you're telling yourself what you cannot do, which is somewhat of an 8 trait sometimes. But realize that this is time for you to come into mastery at being at 26. This is another question for a number 4. Lots of 4s in the house right now. And they say, I just turned 23 last year, and it was very introspective. Does the age simplified give a clue to which energy will be prominent that year, such as Mercury at this year of my life?
It's I can honestly say I don't know the answer to that, only because at 23 I wasn't aware of this kind of information, but I can tell you what it feels like to be a number 4 at 40, right? Or in my 40s. And it changes. I can definitely see me at 23. I was in a totally different space, but in my 40s, in my 30s, you begin to tap into a different parts of who you are. And I think that It's probably equivalent to any number in the room, but I can't speak to that directly because I wasn't aware of this information at 23.
I don't know.
Oh, I was just going to add quickly that as a 4, that you're always, looking to build the foundation. I mean, that is our gift, right? We are the head of the dragon, so we're looking ahead, kind of to see. We know things are out there. We can see what needs to be done, and we very sort of easily can look and build a foundation, right? We build the boxes. We see where we fit, what needs to be established in order to get things working, right? No matter where you are. So I think Life's response was great. That me too. I'm not even sure where I was at 23. I'd have to do a whole bunch of calculating because I've been through so many different things. But as a 4, I guess what I would say is start around you. Look at what is around you. You're always building. We know as 4s, oftentimes we will break that down later. But whatever it is, you are always in this state of kind of building and assessment. And is it serving me? How am I serving others? And that great beyond, right? The 4s have that vision. We have that karmic dissatisfaction where we're always looking and looking and looking ahead. And so as a 5, if you're wondering about 23, well, just go ahead and declare it. Declare it. This is my Mercury year. This is the year that I'm going to work on my own communication tools. Perhaps as a 4, what are my communication tools that I have around me? What do I wish to build and grow in my foundation of? So I think that you can, instead of maybe even asking the question, just declare it and say, this will be the year that I do this. You know, these energies are around for all of us to grab a hold of and use as we desire. Wholeness.
Yeah.
In the numerology book, it says that the 22nd, 26th, 31st, and 35th years for number 4s are very good. But, you know, I'm a strong believer in you are the creator of your reality. And even though, like Brother Sevan was saying, we are all the numbers. Once you have mastered yourself, and you can create your reality, even though we have the astrological guidance, like Sister Joy was just saying. But have a look at the numerology book by Harish Johari as well, because that does list for you which are your good years and not so good years as well. Wholeness.
So real quickly about life experience, it's important to be present and enjoy your life. You know, in my 20s, I partied, especially, I went to college, and afterwards, then, my mother finally relaxed, and I could go to the clubs. I live near New York City, so I would be in Brooklyn all the weekends. And I found, looking back, looking forward into that experience, it taught me a lot because I grew into myself. Because, there's times in your life in your 20s, it allowed you to know who you are. And because in my early 20s, people would tell me things and I would take it in as to as that truth, or I believed it. I was a very innocent young girl. So in those, because I was sheltered by my parents. So in those terms, in my 20s, this is when I got into, to learn, even having boyfriends and relationships. These things taught me a lot because in my early 20s, I made the mistake or I should say, not a mistake. My life experience was to make a relationship the forefront. A relationship with a boy, the first thing in my life, and it wasn't I had to experience that to get into, to knowing who I am, who I want, what I can accept, what I could not. So, sometimes you want to experience life, and so that you can gain that wisdom, for your later years. We do go through the chakras as we grow, 7, 14, 21. So, maybe pay attention to that and to see where are you, and go through, how you're feeling in understanding yourself. The self-discovery in your 20s is wonderful, enjoy.
All right, family. So we're going to keep this rapid fire going. Beautiful insights from everyone. Just remember, all of this is used as a blueprint and a guide. Like, you eventually visit everything. So it is always great to say, like Joy was saying, hey, 23, this is going to be my year of communication. I'm going to work on this. Having a plan allows you to be able to focus. And so if you want to dial something in, because next year it's not going to be a 5, maybe it's a 7, and then you're able to say, okay, this time I'm going to work on X. And so using this numerology as a guideline is also great. And sometimes it's not as rigid as you may think, because you can make it into whatever you want as long as you're bringing it in the proper order. So remember, order is a big thing here. And that's making sure, as our sister is saying, that you're growing in your proper phases because you're learning stuff along the way. So this next question is that it's from a 4. Actually, excuse me, this is a question from a 5. And it's a 5 male, and they're saying, how can I find or increase discipline? My talents provide stability, but the lack of discipline is present in my seeds. Okay, I'm not sure what that means, but I can only gander. Also, I just want to say, very briefly, for everyone that is struggling with the discipline, which again is the neophyte, it's the beginning phase. So it's not like it's not recognized, but we also have to see that you're in a world of infinite stimulus. The deluge that's happening these days is because you can just turn on the internet and see naked women. You can just go down to the Amazon and buy up all types of stuff. You could go to the store and you could, buy products and items and not have to go through the whole process of them even being grown. So because the reality has that kind of energy to it, which has been its gift and its curse, you have to also realize within yourself, like, where is that foothold? Like, where can you get that foothold in yourself? As our sister was saying, like, sometimes you have to go through extremes. Like Vipassana, just commit to something. I'm going to be quiet for 10 days and then go ahead and start overhauling my life. You got to make an extreme decision in your life to start pushing in on that discipline. This is my advice, because if you're going to try to like gradually do that, it ain't going to work out, because you're already saying, hey, I need to increase discipline. You need to go extreme for a moment. One of the things that I started doing was, again, visiting an altar in nature every single day. There's other things that you can do to create repetition that are going to start getting you into the proper groove, and that's going to equal discipline for you. So that's my advice. Anyone here have any other insights about how to increase discipline in 15 seconds?
Also tapping in. All right, so 5's also kind of are prone to addictions. So cut off external stimulus that is not necessarily leading to your best effects, or you tapping into that space of clarity. You need no external influence via substances. You want to pour into something that gives you clarity and tap on the extreme, like Brother Sevan was mentioning. It's time to turn on. You can turn on 5. You're amazing.
I would suggest 5 is because it's communication and you're very quick. You look at the opposite is you have to slow down. How do you slow down? Through meditation. But it's not always a race. You do it little by little. I always say to people, how do you eat an elephant? Little by little. You don't do Vipassana for 40 days straight away. You build it up. There's a method called Mohan Vrat, which is you build it up hour by hour, week by week. Or you can, if you want to start off, put an alarm on your phone for every hour of the day. So we're normally awake for about 12, most people are awake for about 12 hours in a day. Every hour, put an alarm on for just 1 minute on your telephone and sit in that minute and just concentrate on your breath. So it's only 12 minutes of your day. And all you have to do is you can either do alternative nose breath or just sit and breathe. And then carry on and do your work. The next hour, again, for 1 minute. 15 seconds over. Wholeness.
Wholeness. All right, so we got another question here. And again, just letting you know that there's benefits to this discipline. We were talking about earlier, you get some of this in. Breathing is a great way to see the benefits of disciplining, because you'll come back in there because you want to be there. So it's really, if you're thinking straitjacket is discipline, then sometimes that's the whole Catholic programming that's letting you know that's making that appear that way. The discipline means that you're not having fun. That's not necessarily what we're talking about here. We're talking about doing things that actually increase the way that you are through repetition, or the who you are through repetition. This next question is from a Path 9. I believe they're saying that this is a Path 9 female, that their mother is a Path 2. And she's saying that harmony is difficult for us. Major traumas were inflicted to me by her. And I've healed, but when I talk about her impact in my life, she is unable to deal with it. How can I better communicate with her? Keymakers.
I can answer that. It's so funny because that's near and dear to my heart. My mom's a 2, and I'm a 9 as well. She's also a 5 destiny path. So what's interesting is that, you know, we've all had our traumas with our parents. Some of us, most of us probably have. And so that dynamic with the 9 and a 2, you know, it's beneficial because the 2 is a nurturer, the 9 is a protector. So, you know, as a 9, you are very strong. You're very strong. And 2s can be a little dependent and shy. And especially if there's trauma there, 2s may not go into that. And so as a 9, you're going to have to be strong for that too, and hold space for your mother, you know, while you all work out those traumas. And in the event you can't work it out with your mother, you as a sovereign have to do it yourself and stand strong so that your reflection, your mother, can see that, so that, okay, my child is strong and has gone to those deep depths that I'm afraid to go. If they're able to walk through it, I can at least go and walk through it myself or with their assistance, you know. So, you know, I understand that, you know, the 2s don't really, I wouldn't say deal with conflict because they can be a little shy, but you have to be the one to proactively pursue the healing for yourself, and then for the group such as you and your mother and, you know, possibly other family members. So I just wanted to add that wholeness.
So it's gonna also answer, I think, that last question regarding family, dealing with family members. It's so important, you know, to recognize that when dealing with your family, they're really a direct reflection of who you are, what you're going through, your blockages. So seriously look at these relationships. Like, you know, how does, you know, like Sister Paige was saying, what's the dynamic between the 2 and the 9? And so, so that you can respond I'm not going to say appropriately, so that you can respond with measure in having to deal with the person. So if someone is not someone that directly confronting them is, you know, it's not going to get you anywhere. So understanding that, you know, going through certain meditations, you know, like the Ho'oponopono, where you can go to the DNA line and heal, you know, that the DNA, you know, in the relationships between your mother, directly with your mother, directly with your father. It's very important. You have to know who you are and what role do you play in your story, you know, so that you can engage in a way that heals, not so much directly confront with conflict. So for me, having relationships, even if it's hard, but still dealing with the issues, because I know these are my lessons, you know, seeing every aspect and everyone in my life as the lessons they came to teach me, you know, so it gives me pause sometimes in like responding. You know, it's not about the 2, but about you and how you're seeing the 2. So definitely pay attention to that.
Wholeness, 15 seconds. I can see how even like do some time traveling when you can handle it. Like time travel is important. So seeing yourself I'm the observer, looking in from your mother's eyes, from your dad's eyes, what did they go through like during that time is extremely important. But diving into the space where you, for example, my pops was the baby of the family, checking the economic status of the family, the times of the family, what happened during that time that led to this decision, and being okay with that's what happened, accepting that decision, and how can I learn from this travel that you deep dive within yourself, with your own DNA, to pull those jewels forward so you can move forward. But asking those questions and pointing the finger, it always point more back at you to give you the ability to dive in self. So take responsibility for that navigation into your timeline.
I love that.
at people as because I work a lot with the goddess energies and bringing in Kali. Kali is the one who really chops people's heads off, primarily to chop off their egos. And one aspect how I use her is if I really want to say something to somebody in the members of the family is I chop their head off, but I imagine my head on top of their head. So I'm talking to myself. And I bring that into a meditation, into my own silent moment. Like, how would I like to be spoken to? In what way? After I've chopped their head off. And I'm actually having a conversation with myself, which brings me into that space of how I am going to take that communication with that member of family. Wholeness.
Wholeness. Okay, so we have about 5 more questions here. So let's see what we got on this. Then we'll be closing out for today. Again, thank you everyone for bringing these questions in and being so forthcoming, especially in getting solutions and gaining solutions in your life. As we said earlier, that all these answers are amazing for the kind of beings that feel the unique calling to applying them. So if you've heard something today, it didn't resonate, and you just don't feel like that's the direction that you should go, I'm sure there's something that you did hear. And so we ask you to take the bitter with the sweet, and always, of course, look within self, because if you're waiting for someone else to change, then maybe you're just waiting. But if you start seeing how to change things from within, then that's when you get the change. Now, simple question here is actually from a male 7, saying, how do I connect with my power day if 7 is not a day in the week, but the south node of the moon, Ketu? And of course, the simple answer of this is actually it's the numbers that you're looking at. So all numbers that dissolve into 7. Also, I would recommend checking out the numerology book by Harish Johari, because you can actually look then under path number 7 and actually see the other days that connect with you. I'm sure our sister Niva may know some of those days. I also believe Monday is also consecrated to Ketu, while Rahu is Sunday. Maybe she wants to give a little bit of insight there.
Yeah. Monday is the day for Ketu to connect with self. I'm sure Sister Déesse knows a lot more because she is the number 7 wholeness.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's Monday in really strong moon, energy. So yeah, wholeness.
Okay, so here we go from a psychic 8, because there's some thick questions here down here. No, it doesn't thin it out. It's like, how you think you're getting to the end and it's like, it starts drilling down. No, that's not what happens here. So it's psychic 8 is asking, I'm a male, 22 years old. I've been seeing the number 44 a lot lately, every single day. Can you lend me some insight on what this might mean for me and my growth at this time? So again, it's 8 day. It's an 8 day. Anybody have any insights on that double up or that mirroring reflection of number 8 coming back into the reality at 22 years old? Lots of doubling up here of these even numbers and what that could mean in the quantification of the path. Anybody?
Take it, run with it.
Exactly.
Do whatever you want to do with it, brother.
It's all you. You're lined up.
Yeah, because everything is, you're just connecting to the metaphysical aspect of yourself. We live within this mirrored reality in the physical sense, but beyond that mirror, when you go beyond the mirror, is the metaphysical sense, and is the metaphysical world, which is our spirit, because we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And it's like when you see those synchronicities happening in your life, the 22, the 44, the 8, 4 is half of 8, 2 is half of 4, like you're in line, like you're aligning with your true essence, your true self. So like Brother Alistair said, run with it, go with it, follow your joy.
Oh, this, I continue. All right, so we got Mars, Saturn, Jupiter, Pluto, all lining up. So again, the thing would be not seeing an alignment in these times. There's so much to see, so you directly in it. So use that current. Grab your canoe and just keep rowing.
All right, here we go. Another question from a number 8. 37 years old, male life, path on the 9. So still path 8. Can you tell me the significance of this info and how it aligns with me on my mission as a light worker, musician, and spiritual work? And, again, since we're closing down here, I will rapid fire this question. brother, as a number 8, we've been talking 8 all day. So everything that was mentioned here is relevant to you. This is about a deep dive within self. This can't happen within a few hours. That the materials that have been provided for you actually allow you to see how that's going to increase your mission as a light worker and a musician, and your spiritual work, and just how that dials in on the path for you. I'm sure you'll have a lot of excitement in looking through the materials. You can also check through the past Keymaker episodes, because we always are dialing in. Check out the support.secretenergy.com and check out the help docs, the calendar that we put together, the cosmic calendar, and the Enealogy page, and just study more about your path, because it is all relative. This is another question from I'm not sure how the numbers are coming out here, but I guess this is a 2. It says, how do I find guidance from within? I always feel I'm reacting to my environment, but directionless when I'm by myself. This is the question. 15 seconds.
Meditation. I mean, we can give you 1,000 different answers, but it comes to you just finding a moment in the morning, at night, whenever, to just sit down with yourself and just meditate.
Absolutely. On I think that's the 23rd day. I'm re-uploading all of the power builds. There's actually 9 of them, ironically. And oh, I got somebody coming through on the comms. Hold on. So we're uploading all of the big builds that were happening during the meditation, and I think it's, well, I'm not thinking it. I'm sure it's day number 23, and also day number 24. Some really deep insight on what I call the big 4 of just getting yourself dialed in and tapped into energy. And this is also, we want to give these recommendations because some of these questions seem like maybe it's your first time, and that's great because you have so much to look forward to, but some of the basic rules still apply. Even before getting deep into the past, stuff like breathing and meditation, that is universal for all of us. The diet, this is universal for all of us. So look into those pointers, and I'm sure they'll assist you in being able to dial in and learning more about yourself. Because that's what happens. If you know more about everything else than you do about yourself, then you kind of have no choice but to go outside. And we always talk about how people kind of know even more about the external gods than they do about their spleen, their pancreas, their heart, and any of the stuff that's going on inside. And so we recommend that you learn more about yourself inside, because that's going to point you inward, and that's how you're going to begin to change things. There's also another question here from a female on the path 4, and she says, I have an intimate relationship question. This is a long question. I guess we're finishing strong today. It says, I am a strong and self-made woman, and although I seek and am attracted to strong, self-assurant, alpha sovereign men, okay, I always end up in relationships with men who appeared that way at first, but end up actually being insecure and dependent. I don't know why I continue to attract this into my life and how to find someone equally yoked, so to speak. I know it's about energetics, but sometimes I just think that I'm too much of a woman in order to find a man that I resonate with. I'm going to have to minimize myself. Am I going to have to minimize myself in some way? Any advice?
Do not minimize yourself. That is my big advice. As a 4 women are quite strong and determined, and we have, we are that head of the dragon, and we are continually in using that head and looking around for things. So I believe that does make the 4s, and of course, because we hold that foundational number 4, being able to build and hold so much, establish structure, create structure, see what needs, bring in what needs to establish the structure. So there is a lot of strength and determination present in that 4 energy. So yes, I think as women, this can be challenging, and it is an attractive energy. We don't know what your life path is, so that might also help to answer this a little bit more fully.
Destiny 3.
What? Oh, she's a 3. Okay, yeah. So big, 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 right? So you're a 4 and 3. So you are shining Jupiter in all sorts of greatness and probably really, really funny. So yeah, you're a catch, girl. Of course you are. So in all of this, right, we need to be aware of our role in the dynamic. And I think we touched on this last week too. That what can initially attract us to people can also be, what over time begins to dissolve it. So this really, I think, is an instance where you need to take a look at your patterns, which it sounds like you are doing. Absolutely, do not diminish yourself, and instead, I guess what I would say is to call in what you're looking for. Through the meditation, through the manifestation. You are a strong, beautiful, sovereign being, and all of us deserve a partner in that. If that's what we wish, to complement us in that way. And so, we've had some lovely relationship questions here today, talking about going with your gut, understanding that even though the numbers might work, maybe the personalities themselves don't work, or it's just not the right time for things. So that's where I'm going to leave it for another key maker. I know that's been more than 15 seconds.
I want to bring mention also to alchemy. Very good insights there, sister. And alchemy is like when you mix up bleach, ammonia, you get a bomb. So what happens is sometimes when you say, I want a guy to be attractive, I want him to be self-sufficient, I want him to be smart and intelligent, I want him, and you start cooking up this projection. Yeah. What you end up with is that, but then you got to realize, so what is that equal? Because that would be the pattern, because that would equal a certain kind of thing. And let's say, for instance, if a person, because this happens in many times in our lives where we have to take lead, we have to be the one supporting everyone and all that, and you've piled all that on. So actually what that person is kind of going to need the most is someone that they can depend on. So while you think that you're jumping into a relationship with a person that is going to be like strong and leading, this person is like, look, I'm tired of being strong. I'm tired of leading. Oh, look, somebody that's strong and leading. You do it, mama. And they just kind of like ball up on you. And so maybe it's what exactly you're asking for in your alchemy and saying, well, if I put this component in, this is the kind of person that I'm going to get. And we have billions of reflections here in the world to say, this is what happens when you mix this and this and this together. This is what it equals. So sometimes going back into your projection and saying, is it that you're really looking for someone that is strong and dependent, or someone that is stable, but also is open to growth and has some room to grow, versus thinking that they know everything? Because I know I'm a 4-3 also, but a male, but there could be a lot of challenge there if you actually find someone that you feel like is going above and beyond even what you're capable of. So it's just one of those things to kind of look into deeply, especially when you're in a pattern and you see this reoccurring. I always in life, when I saw patterns reoccurring, was sure that it was me. And I started that in my 20s after going through a few relationships and seeing those relationships all in a certain way. And I said, it can't be these people. It has to be you. And then starting to see what I was doing personally to cause those results. And then I found some things and I start making changes on those things. So I'm going to keep this moving since we still have a bit more. I know maybe someone also will answer a little bit about what they feel in this question in conjunction with this next question. You want to go ahead, brother? Go ahead. He's got another 4 coming in. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, as a 4, just you have to practice patience, because sometimes you got it all figured out. And oftentimes when you do find somebody else who have strong personality, who's able to lead, as a 4, I tend to sit back and says, go lead. Because when I do begin to lead, then it's confrontation. So you have to practice patience with yourself, and you have to practice patience with others.
And more specifically, this person did mention that, that's what they want, but the person kind of balls up and stops leading and stops being that strong, self-assured person. And that also can be an act of even dominance. Like sometimes, again, when there's a conflict, as our brother is saying, that a person can get demoralized in that after a while and just kind of like surrender, especially if the 4 is constantly bringing in that battle all the time and leading all the time. It can wear down the person. Because also remember, the reason why number 4 has Sunday as their day is that the 4 in the path of genealogies and numerology is the closest to the sun, or being sun-like. And so there's a lot of that leadership kind of energy that comes through. But the other thing about leaders is there tends to be only one leader. So you have to be aware that, hey, you're calling in two leaders here. Is this what's really needed? And just because a person's a follower also doesn't make them weak. This is another thing, because the two cannot, as we talked about with Rahu and Ketu, be powerful if they do not have each other to complement each other. So it's kind of like realizing in your relationships, doing a deeper dive at making sure the person that you're engaged with really knows this. And this is why it's important to do things like bring enealogy into the relationship, because at the end of the day, if I ask you, well, did you bring any of these kind of components into any of these relationships? More than likely the answer is going to be no, because of the lack of awareness of something like this, or that is this dynamic. And this is, of course, why we wanted to have something like this so bad, and we kept really looking for it until we found it, because when we bring it into anything that's a relationship or involves communications, it changes it in a dynamic way. And that's the advice I want to give to everybody here on the line today. Is I like to call it life before enealogy, and just kind of like you're wandering around in the dark, you have really no blueprint. I know there's some that are actually here and they don't like to give anything any credit, like I don't set another system and here we go, and it kind of becomes like a cynical way of looking at any metaphysical knowledge. And just remember, you're talking to me, so I have to go through thousands and thousands of arts and works and books and symbols and all that in this life and this path. And this is what I found to be so proficient at, giving us some guidelines and something that is rather complex. Men and women are very complex. Relationships are complex. So you don't want to complicate it more by not having any guidelines. This helps you, and it can help the other person. And actually what it becomes is the arbitration component. Because remember, generally in relationships, let's say in spiritual relationships, there's generally a book that actually is the component, or the arbitration component. So let's say in Christianity, the arbitration component is the Bible. The reason why that was important and dynamic in relationships is because if somebody is doing something that is quote unquote wrong to the other person, it's not going to be the other person that says, hey, you're doing it wrong to me, because that doesn't come off well. It's the book. And they say, well, in the book, it says that you're not supposed to be doing this to me. And then that has a tendency to put more sway over the person to change their ways. Now, of course, the Bible actually introduces a plethora of other problems. And so for us to actually have something like enealogy and to bring that into our relationships gives us a brand new day on how we're handling things, because it is an arbitration component that we can all use. And who doesn't like to learn more about themselves? So I would recommend that. Also, let's keep going. We got two more questions here. It's we have a number 2 here, female, saying, if I am unable to fast because I need the energy to provide milk, is there another way to cleanse the system without not eating anything?
Something like sea moss is very good. Sea moss contains all the nutrients that you need, or I believe it contains something like 89 minerals that the body needs. And just making a sea moss porridge to give you all the nutrients, and the nutrients that you're feeding your baby. So try that, perhaps.
There can be some great herbal teas that you could be drinking to support your liver system there, like a nettles tea, or even, maybe a dandelion tea. I guess what I would say is that whatever you're going to be ingesting is going to come through the breast milk. So like if you were doing a dandelion root, for example, it might change the taste of your breast milk a little bit. And so the baby might, get a little bit of that. And the dandelion would be, should be okay for baby, depending on, how old the infant is. I would just be aware of that, and also know that if you are doing any type of detoxing, that is going to be pulling out of your fat storage, right? And that is what you want to be holding on to be feeding your baby and so forth. So I would just, look around for some guidance around fasting while you're breastfeeding, just depending on how old your child is and, the amount of breast milk that she's taking or he is taking in. But that there are a lot of gentle herbs that you can use to support you during that.
Even a bone broth fast as well. Like there's a lot of good information out there about the restorative powers of bone broth, and just even having broth for a period of days and no solids is an excellent way to fast and still get everything that you need. It's obviously sourcing the right broth. Wholeness.
Okay, so we have the final question today. It's the last but for sure not least. This is from a path number 2, the giver. It says, today is my son's birthday. He passed away on 8/14/2019. And how best is it to honor his life and keep his memory strong as I learn how to relate to him in a different way? Wholeness and balance vibrations.
Wholeness. So my father just transitioned, and you know, in terms of like how transitioning or death affects us, it's important to honor the person. What I felt with his transition was that he didn't disappear from my life. I felt his love. You know, it was funny. I think a lot of people were calling me and saying sorry for your loss, and that's the traditional thing that everyone says to you, sorry for your loss. And my honest, heartfelt feeling was, there is no loss. It was such a gift. My dad was such a gift, and your son was such a gift to you. You know, the time that he spent with you, the love you shared, the laughter, all of that is in your heart. So, you know, sometimes, you know, people go into the grief and sort of like forget that relationship, the moments together, and how precious and lovely and happy, you know, keeping that alive in my heart has been just wonderful. You know, my house is so warm because, you know, my dad filled it with everything. So in a way, it's not a loss. It's just like, thank you. You know, thank you, Daddy, for all of the stuff that you did. You know, my thing was like, he taught my son how to cook. So the other day when my son was making eggs, I said to my son, you know, this is Grandpa, because he thought you had. So every time you make this egg, you eat this egg, that's him, that's his memory alive. And so honoring that, and you know, so going, you know, yes, we all grieve differently, but, you know, really know that the person's present is forever in your heart, and not shy away from it, because, you know, there's like you know, in this world, there's a lot of negative connotation with death, while it's a celebration. And because, you know, when my father transitioned, I felt that he went into the everything, you know, so, you know, understanding that, feeling that for myself, honoring his name, honoring his presence, being very grateful. I feel so much gratefulness for him being in my life, you know, is how I've been going through it, and my honest feelings regarding this period of my life. And I hope it continues, you know, for a long time. Wholeness.
Also today, I'd like to add, today's the most auspicious year in the Hindu and the Jain calendar. I was telling the Keymakers before we started earlier today, and it's to do with the lunar cycle and new beginnings, but it's also a day to remember our loved ones who've passed over. So I mentioned about the Tarpanam offering that we can do to our ancestors. And also it's a day to celebrate your loved ones. So just bringing in the memories, thinking of the good times and celebrating their life, as Sister Déesse just said. But it's a very, very auspicious day today. Wholeness.
Wholeness. Diving into the space. I just being the breath of being in that same energy. I've lost embraced a couple new ancestors with since this year. It's actually been about 6 who transitioned. But when these are all reflections of self, from my grandmother. Like I started, for me, diving into the genealogy, their star. You know, what my grandma was an 8 and a 3, and 8 and a 5. So pinging like some of the mastery that she gave me, those gifts, and like attributing this to the star, like the order my grandma gave and my cousin gave, in all these different ways. But giving them an opportunity, an opportunity to stand in this mastery which they showed me within their lifetime. So if it's the young youth, appreciate your energy. So let's say he was a 2, turning in the direction of 2, I think it's southeast, and just dialing into the energy path, because that was a reflection of self. Like, how can you continue to use that current that you got from him to move forward in the best way possible. And it's okay to express yourself, because I know a lot of people hold in that hurt initially. It's okay. That's their love. Like, that's your love. It's okay to express. It should be expressed, because a lot of times that's how you can even get in some of these deeper esoteric spaces. You got to use this energy and emotion, these emotions, and use them properly to give you sails, to be the wind in your sails to get to certain places, but don't get lost in the current. But using those, using that life, using that energy, that mastery, and the even what he could have, or what he was actually, because that's the gift, the experiences. So using those abilities to be use the archetype and amplify those currents within yourself, and again, wholeness.
I would like to briefly add to that as well. Dealing with honoring our new ancestors, our newfound ancestors. Ancestor altars are beautiful for your ancestors. And also calling upon them. Like, we don't realize how powerful that is to call upon them. I had lost my grandmother almost 2 years ago. And it's been so powerful when I call upon her, the spaces that I see her in, such as the dream space, things that have never happened physically here that happened there, and how much she wants me to know, and how much she's guiding me there in that space, as well as all the other ancestors that I meet there as well. So when we call upon them, connect with them and honor them, and really hold them dear in that happy space. Because grief can go two ways. You can really, when you think about them, you can either get very, very sad, or you can get very, very happy. So grief is really about what you do with that energy. You know what I'm saying? So that's the thing, is that when we call upon them, especially when we have so much joy and thankfulness for that time that we had with them, it'll be a surprise as to where they pop up, especially in that dream space, giving us gifts, dropping gems, and being more actively, like hearing their voice and things of that nature. It's best to develop that spiritual power and being attuned, tap into the new moon and the full moon cycles, as well, when that energy is very powerful for you. So I just wanted to add that wholeness.
Also, I wanted to finalize with our sister Déesse was also saying that when her father transitioned, that there was actually an animal that had come out, and it was just kind of like, you want to explain that really briefly, Déesse, so we can bring some clarity to what Paige was saying about, you'd be amazed where you see them. And
yeah, so this was amazing. So the night, so we were about to bring my dad to the hospital, and so I'm holding him and we're putting him into the car, and then I see him going last breaths. And so he transitioned, and of course, so now he's outside and we're waiting for the funeral home to come. And as they pull in, they pull into to get the stretcher and everything. My cousin and I are sitting there waiting, and all of a sudden, it was just like, it was a weird feeling, really. And then I think we turned around, and then we saw this beautiful, huge white possum slowly walking toward us. And it was like, I mean, we do live, in New Jersey, so it's not a suburb, it's not, the woods. And it was this huge white possum, and it was directly coming toward, my brother, my cousin, and I. And, some of them ran away, but I looked at my cousin and I said, "Oh my God, that's Daddy." And you could actually, the way it moved, the way it felt, and as it was directly, usually some animals will run away from you. It just kept coming. And, I didn't run, I shined a light on it and it went into the bushes. But my feeling since then is that, I felt Daddy would go everywhere. And actually seeing the moment, the moment of his transition, it was a recognition that this was the moment. A lot of times when someone dies, people feel a lot of regrets, or guilt, or, if maybe, all of these questions. But I really truly recognized the moment as the moment that he would be in my memory. And my, not the Wigeby part of me not accepting was because I really truly knew that this was it. And I saw this moment as that I've seen it before, I've been here before. And again, you know, when I did see the possum, it was like, oh wow, he's everything now. And so I do feel him in the house. I feel him, you know, that he has a chair that he sat so much downstairs that the imprint of his head is in there. So so it's really strange. I think, you know, when someone transitions, you don't realize how much of them was in everything around you anyway. You know, that was the thing, like, you know, not just in us, in our memory and the stuff that he did, but, you know, even in the furniture in the house, you know, the trees outside, all the things that we did together. So, you know, and of course in nature, you know, which is so beautiful. To just recognize that every time now that I see a bird, I see a squirrel, I see the sky, that's my dad. You know, we are inside of each other. So it's, you know, sometimes like in silencing the grief, you allow to be able to see that, you know. So, you know, it's a transition, you know, not a death. And so it, you know, it truly is wonderful to see and experience that and honor that, you know.
That's beautiful.
So.
That's so beautiful, sister. Thank you so much for having the courage and the honor to share. Just letting everyone know here, tribe, that, you know, we're always inside of something. As you see, we're in our mother's womb. So where can we go? And as we keep sliding through these vibrations and frequencies and learning more about the spectrum of self, then this gives us the keys to be able to explore those aspects of who we are, and that there's no rush. Just as you saw with those layers, you know, we're all going to be going into different spaces and different vibrations and completing our university degrees. And as we keep getting more and more aware and wise, then we also collect all of that wisdom. And so our duty and our charge is to continuously distribute this wisdom to all of the seeds. All of us here function as gardeners here in this space, in this time, and just fertilizing with the minds and the bodies and the souls that are here. And so that's what we do. This is Keymakers. It's episode 5. This is now a time, it's 12 o'clock here on my side of things for us all to go on with our day. And it's Sunday, so have a great time with your family and your friends, and just think about today as being in your heart. So then you don't actually have to think about it at all. You can take it in. And we'll also get a lot of these questions that were asked into the support section, so you can revisit some of the things that we recommended today. I'll also be placing the Keymakers information here in the description of this build that we had today, so you'll be able to link up with them if there's something that you feel inspired with that they're bringing and that you want to connect with that more. So without any further ado, wholeness and balanced vibrations, everyone. We'll see you soon. You're always in the heart. Check us out. We sent out a couple newsletters. We have a secret energy chat. It's always happening there. Obviously, if you want to jump in and have this deep dive with reflections, you can always come in at Sovereignty Mentorship and link up with us and begin to explore your uniqueness, wholeness.
Wholeness.
Thank you.